Okay, now, over to Leviticus. Leviticus, the most fun book in the Old Testament. Okay, I'm going to try to make this interesting, the book of Leviticus, okay? Actually, to be honest with you, once upon a time I taught a whole course on the book of Leviticus and things. And actually, we had a great time with it. But the problem is the book of Leviticus, thousands of years from our culture. And this is where it comes up. The book of Leviticus, the major theme of the book is this: be holy as I, the Lord your God, am holy. This is the major theme, is basically holiness. By the way, this book is called Leviticus. If you take the cuss off the end here, who is the book about in the book of... It's about Levites and who would be the other group of people? Levites and priests. What's the difference? Levites are... What are Levites? They're of the tribe of Levi. So the Levites are of the tribe of Levi. What are the priests? Where did the priests come from? Aaron's descendants, yeah. So Aaron is a Levite, but Aaron's descendants are the priests, okay? So Aaron was designated as a high priest. His children's children become the priests. So Aaron's descendants are the priests, the Levites. The Levites carry the tabernacle. The Levites carry the tabernacle stuff. The priests actually do what? The priests minister at the altar and in the Holy of Holies and things like that. The priests actually get engaged, whereas the Levites are the ones that haul the tabernacle and that kind of stuff. So, what we know. External religion. External religion. Is religion uniquely personal and private with few external requirements? In our culture, have we privatized religion? In our culture, have we privatized religion? Is it almost out of place to speak in the public arena about one's religion? Is it almost, have they silenced, in as far as a public expression, articulation of Christianity, has it almost been silenced in the public arena? And your religion is supposed to be what? Something that's personal and private, that you keep to yourself. It's kind of funny in our culture, isn't it? Question, is it more inappropriate to speak about religion in public or actually see sexual acts in public? Which is more accepted by our culture? Yeah, did you get the irony there? Okay, I'm sorry, but our culture is much more, is incredible. Something that should be very private is made public, and it's okay. Something that should be public has now been silenced in some senses. And so this is something I want you to think about in terms of how religious expression has been silenced in our culture. It's been very purposeful, and I've watched it happen over 40 years, and it's been very particular. Until now, it's almost impossible to speak about religion in public. Does religion have external things, though? Does religion have its external expression, or is it only personal and private? Here's another one. What is the cult in the Old Testament? Now, when I use the word cult, oftentimes people's heads go to, when I use the word cult, does anybody go back to remember this guy Jimmy Jones and drinking Kool-Aid and then all these people that they're dead, and stuff? That's a cult, right? A cult with following and things, people brainwashed, and they go into this cult kind of context, okay? That's what we think about cult. When you're in Old Testament studies, you can't think like that, okay? Old Testament studies, the cult is anything you do externally to symbolize your religion. Anything you do externally to symbolize your religion. So, for example, when we prayed before class, question, did I bow my head and close my eyes to pray? I bowed my head. Is that part of the cult? Yes, that's part of the cult. That's something I do externally. When someone prays, some people take off their hats when they pray, okay, to show respect and things like that. And so different people do. Does anybody do this? You know what I'm saying? Cross themselves. Is that an external act of worship that you do to symbolize? Okay, those are external things. Some of you come from churches that do a lot with the cult in terms of external things, like liturgy. Okay, do some of you come from churches that have a lot of liturgy, and do others of you come from churches that have almost no liturgy? Okay, and so you get into different things, traditions and things like that. Anything you do externally to symbolize your religion. By the way, will some people symbolize their religion externally by wearing a t-shirt? I'm in Greek class and the kid says, Jesus rules on his t-shirt or something like that. Is that an external expression of his religion? So you could say anything that you do externally, liturgy, typically in churches and things like that with the cult, is there a lot of external expression of religion in the Old Testament? Is there a lot of external expression in the Old Testament? Yeah, they had to think about how they approached God in various ways. So the importance of externals as you approach God. Do externals matter, or does only your heart matter? Do externals matter when you approach someone? Do externals matter when you approach someone? Now, I'll use a ritual. I call it a torture ritual I have with my wife. I probably shouldn't say it like that, but okay. You have to understand, my background is I grew up playing athletics, okay? I played athletics since I was a kid. And so, in high school, I played soccer, basketball, tennis, 3 seasons, 3 different sports. When I went to college, played 2 different seasons, basketball and tennis and stuff in college and stuff. So how should I say? Have I been working out? I don't work out anymore, it's obvious. But anyways, but when I was younger, did I work out like every day, was sweat part of my life, you know what I'm saying? I worked out all the time and stuff and was athletic and things like that. So does sweat bother me? And the answer is no. I've been sweaty half my life, but okay. So then now all of a sudden I find myself married. So I'm out cutting the lawn and I'm cutting the lawn and then I do the weeding and I'm doing all this work outside and stuff. And I come in and I got a t-shirt on and stuff and so I'm drenched with sweat and stuff. And then I have this ritual that I come up to my wife and I say, honey, do you love me? How much do you love me? I want a hug. And I come and I use it to check how much she loves me. Now the question is, does she love me or love me not? Okay, when you're sweaty like that, love me not. Okay, and stuff. But what I'm saying is, okay, what happens? How come when I approach my wife and I'm all sweaty like that? Question: does approach matter? Does approach matter? Does that affect how she thinks about me? Does approach matter? When I'm all sweaty and stuff, is that gross to her? And she says, what? Get away from me. Get away from me. Okay? I said, it's all my wife doesn't love me anymore. Stuff like that. Oh, it's time to take a shower, buddy. You got to get your act together. So anyways, what I'm saying is approach matters. Approach matters. How does that affect how we approach God? How does that affect how we approach God? The other day, I was in my office. Usually when I study in my office, I kick back in my chair and I put my feet up on my desk and I read. Okay, that's how I read. Okay, I kick back, put my feet up on my desk and I read. All of a sudden I hear a knock at the door and I turn around. This is the 3rd floor frost where all the faculty are up there. Nobody goes up there but faculty, okay? Nobody can find their way up there. It's a maze and stuff. So we're up there. And all of a sudden I turn around and honk, there's the president of Gordon College. I'm kicked back, my feet up on my desk. I go, holy cow, here's the president. Now question, did I feel a little bit embarrassed about that? This is the president of the college, okay? Do I want to be sitting there with my feet up on my desk when the president of the college stops by? Okay? I just never saw the president in 12 years. I've never seen a president up there. Do I like this guy's really go-getter? And he's up in my office. I'm like, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, okay. I used to having a president up here and things like that. And we had a great conversation and stuff. He's a really good guy. But what I'm saying is, question, president shows, okay, now suppose Elaine Phillips, who I've known for 35 years, is a good friend. Elaine pops over and I got my feet up on my desk. Is that a big deal? No, she knows me and stuff like that. It's no problem. Question, president shows up, big deal? Big deal, okay? So question, does it matter the stature of the person on how you approach? Does it matter the stature? Do you approach your friends the same way you would approach somebody who's, your boss or somebody that's very significant? Would you approach the President of the United States? Would there be a sense of, he's the President of the United States, or a sense of respect and that kind of thing? So what I'm saying is, as you approach God, are there certain things God says that are repulsive to Him, and are there certain things that God likes? Actually, I'm referring to Psalm 15. Does God like gossipers? No, He doesn't, okay? So you gossip and come to God? God says, I don't like that, okay? Does God like people that are righteous, that are kind, that are just, that are fair, that are compassionate to the poor? Yes, those people God likes, and you know what I'm saying? So the book of Leviticus then describes how one approaches a holy God. How one approaches a holy God. And there's certain things that are an abomination to Him, that are offensive to Him, that are disgusting to Him. And it's like coming to Him with a soaking wet t-shirt and asking for a hug. It's not appropriate at that point because you're coming the wrong way. So anyways, this approach, the book of Leviticus describes this approach. Now, here's another way to look at pretty much the same thing. What in life is secular? Okay? My car's low on gas. I'm going to go buy some gas on the way home probably or tomorrow morning. Question, when I go to buy gas, is that secular or sacred? Well, it's impoverishing, that's what it is, but okay. Is it secular or sacred, okay? When I go to the gas station, it's a secular thing, okay? I'm going to go up to Sam's Club probably this weekend and buy some food and stuff for, things. My son's coming back and he eats like a horse, so I got to buy all this food and stuff. When I go up to Sam's Club and stuff, is that secular or sacred? That's, again, secular thing. I go out shopping and, get all this food and stuff, bring it home and things. So those are secular. What would be sacred? Would going to church, would that be more sacred? Reading my Bible and praying, would those be more like sacred things? Okay. I said, well, my question is, when my wife goes shopping, is that secular or sacred? Yeah, actually, it turns out many of you answered the question. And as a guy, you just got to get used to that. That's sacred time, okay? When shopping is okay. But anyway, sacred. Going to church, reading your Bible, praying, those types of things are considered sacred. What the book of Leviticus tells us is, and this is a big message of the book of Leviticus, and this is a very important message and stuff. Basically, the book of Leviticus tells us that a whole of a person's life, everything we do is sacred. Everything we do is sacred. When the Jewish people sit down to eat, do they have to think about God and the types of food that they eat? Yes. When an Israeli woman has a child, does she have to think about God and the having of that child and how many days she's unclean for? As a matter of fact, even when the Israeli people, when they're in the desert and they go to relieve themselves, do they have to think about God? Can they relieve themselves anywhere? Did God tell them that they have to relieve themselves outside the camp and they have to bury it? Yeah. So all of life is sacred. One of the great sayings of Dr. Wilson here is, study. How many of you see your studies as sacred? Is it possible to do your studies as something that's totally secular? Can calculus be made sacred? Okay. What Dr. Wilson says this is, study is the highest form of worship. In other words, what he's saying is, take your studies. Can you offer your studies up to God? Can you take your studies, even your study of mathematics or biology, chemistry, physics, whatever, literature, you offer it up to God, so that all of life and study is the highest form of worship, and use those types of things. So that's the message of Leviticus. Everything is specified, everything is sacred. There's no secular, sacred distinction in this. Leviticus says that which is secular and sacred, they're one. All of life is sacred and lived out in the presence of God. Now,